Hey, welcome to Home RenoVision, the YouTube channel designed to help you guys who are homeowners renovate your houses, get professional results. Today we are going to be showing you how to paint your ceiling. And I know it might almost sound redundant, but listen, there are a lot of really great tips that you need to have so that A, you do it right, B, it looks amazing, and C, you don't hurt your neck. Stay tuned. So one of the most basic skill sets that any home renovator is going to need is to know how to paint a ceiling and do a nice job of it. Because there are a lot of ways that you can really make a mess of your house if you don't know how to paint a ceiling properly. We've all seen the house before, right? The smooth ceiling, lots of pot lights, patches everywhere, lines everywhere. Yes, there is a secret to get a job done without having any of that ugly stuff showing, and it makes it look like one clean finish. And I'm not talking about sprayer, I'm talking about brush and roller, and I'm going to show you all that secret today. But before we jump into all this information, I'm going to suggest that maybe you hit the subscribe button and a couple of other things here. Let's talk about the notification bell. Make sure you hit the notification bell if you're really interested in getting all of our updates. That way you're going to be at the top of the class when new videos come out and you're not going to miss a thing. The other thing is, instead of going through all the link descriptions of all the different videos related to this subject matter, drywall and taping and sanding, there's a lot of detailed information on our channel. Go ahead and try clicking on that little icon. It's like a magnifying glass. And you can type in whatever search you want to look for. I think our channel's at a point now, we have enough information. We can pretty much have an answer for almost any question if you look hard enough. So check out the search tool, throw in a little idea there, and maybe it'll populate a list for other videos that are related to your situation. Now, having said all of that, let's get into the video today. We are dealing with brand new construction today. So painting your ceiling is the same in new construction as it is if you are doing just a rework, but the process is almost identical, except in this situation, we have to add the sanding of our drywall work and priming the drywall before we get into painting the ceiling. And that's really simple. I like using these little blue sponges with the curve on it, all right? These things are awesome because I can get right into my corners without putting a scratch line. I've seen a lot of these things and they're square on both ends. If you put that up here like this and then drag it across, I'll show you what happens. You end up with a line on your ceiling, okay? That's not something you want to have there. So buy one of these with the angle and then you can hit both sides of that corner and make it look pretty. The only other secret you need is to make sure that all your edges are feathered. It's like really feathered to the point where it's like a misty cloud, okay? There's no definitive line in your drywall mud to your drywall. Once you get that accomplished, you're ready to go. The only other thing, take your 360 sander, put it up on your joints, all right? And go opposite direction that you put the mud on, just to change the texture of the mud. Now this is really important because the paper is really smooth. The mud isn't always as smooth as you think it is. And just by going like this, nice and easy, you'll put a little bit of sanding on it, change the texture of mud, and now it's ready to be painted. When you're priming, now I love this rig, my Sherlock pole and my handle. And just so you know, if you're interested in the tools that I'm using, we have a link in the description, oddly enough. It's for Amazon, okay? We put together a special page with all the products and tools that I like to use in case you'd like to get something that you're familiar seeing. When you're priming drywall, you want to make sure you're not using too much pressure. But you are using pressure, okay? You're pushing this paint into the drywall. Don't use so much pressure that you risk popping the screws and making huge paint lines. And don't run the roller right into that corner because you're going to end up marking up your paint on the corresponding wall. Okay? Finish with a gentle touch, back rolling, and you won't have any lines. The other secret is prime in the same direction that you're going to want to be painting with your finished paint. Remember, when we paint ceilings, we can do 2 coats. So the second coat, you want to be painting the same direction as your second coat, and that's going to be determined by a couple of different things. Generally, when I'm painting a ceiling, if I have a window that's facing south, then I want to make sure if the sun's pouring through a window that I'm finishing the paint in the same direction as the sun. So if there is any little lines or ridges, even on the microscopic level, sun pouring across the ceiling will highlight it with a shadow. So if the sun's pouring in your window, paint towards the sun, and if it's not, go on the longest wall in the room. That's a great way to get started. Now, the only other thing you need to know about priming is make sure you let this stuff dry for a good couple of hours before you start doing any touch-up work. It might be dry to the surface, but if you put a knife with mud up there and start scraping around and trying to do your touch-up and your prime check while this is still damp, you're gonna make a heck of a mess of your ceiling, and we don't want that. There we go. So now we're all primed and we got it all figured out. Let's move on and we'll talk about how to do a prime check and make sure your ceiling is ready to be painted before you paint. All right, so once we're done our primer, we want to jump right into doing the prime check as soon as it's dry for about 2 hours. And that's as simple as just taking a little bit of mud and a spotlight and going all around your surface and checking for imperfections. Now you're going to find them everywhere you go. Sanding is not the art of making everything smooth. It's the art of getting rid of all of your ridges and blending your joints to your drywall paper. So the reason we do a prime check before we paint a ceiling is this. And this holds true whether it's a new construction or you're painting a ceiling in an existing space. You always want to go by and check things out. And the prime check does two things for you. A, it fixes all of your mistakes, and B, it fixes all the mistakes that nobody else bothered to fix. Okay? Don't take it for granted that because your ceiling looks pretty good, that it's all good to go, because this is atrocious. So I'm going to just use a standard trouble light. Comes on usually like a 25-foot cord, 100-watt bulb, and that'll show me all of my mistakes. So now you can see all the little pits and nicks and scratches. Now they're all smooth. They've all been sanded, right? So now we just have to take our compound and slide ourselves over here. And this is just a result. Bulkheads are really brutal, right? Because you're taping an outside corner, you're taping an inside corner. Usually this area here, it's going to get a combination of too much mud or not enough mud. That's just the way it is. Bulkheads are very normal that way. You can use a regular mud when you're doing your touch-ups, or you can use a compound with a hardener. I'm going to suggest that if you use the hardener, it'll save you from having to do any priming afterwards. But today I'm using regular mud because I find that a lot of people don't know where to find hardener or are unable to get it in the region where they live. So we have a company called CGC, and they make a 45-minute mud, and that mud allows me to do all this and then not have to prime. If you want to see that process, it's in our other painting video, which you may have seen already. Here we go. So that's it. We just fixed that up. Give this an hour or two to dry. And here's the deal. If I can't see it with this light, it doesn't matter what time of day it is, how much lighting you have, what time of year it is. You know, in the fall sometimes, in the winter, and about 4 o'clock, you get really strange low light. This covers up every single imperfection you're going to find, so that when you paint your ceiling, you know it's going to be perfect, and you're not going to be disappointed 2, 3 weeks or 3 months down the road when at a certain time of day, you're sitting there and you look up and you go, my God, what an ugly ceiling. It happens to everybody, so don't be fooled, all right? Especially when you're buying a new house. All the ceilings look great because they use a really boring flat white paint, and they always take you through at a time of day when you can't tell how bad the paint job is. But this will solve all your problems. Now, let's get on with the painting. So we're just about to jump into the painting, but I want to show you this real quick. This is my prime check touch-up area, and I need to give it a quick little scuff here. There we go. Drop the mic. We're done. Now, my spots need to be primed because I use regular mud. And instead of using a regular primer, having to wait 20 minutes, half an hour, I'm going to use this, because this sucker here, boom, done in 3 minutes, ready to go. So, great product, recommend using it all the time. I've been using this stuff since I was old enough to use spray paint. So when you're doing your ceiling, I'm going to give you an industry secret here, and that's this paint right here. It doesn't look like much, it's not a very sexy can, but the reality is, this is a ceiling paint, it's incredibly flat, it has no acrylic additive, which is what you see in paint that gives it the shine and the sheen. So without the acrylic additive in this, what you get is a perfect blended painted surface where you don't see any lines. Also gives you the ability, if you have it mixed properly, to go do touch-ups at a later date, and it's almost invisible. So when you buy this, have them shake it for you at the paint store, bring it home and use it right away. If you let it sit around for a couple days, all the additives start to separate. and then you're going to get inconsistencies with your finished product, and you won't be able to do any touch-ups. Now, love my 5-in-1, got to pick one of these up. What I'm doing is I'm just going to be putting it into my tray. I'm using a regular roller, and I know there are roller systems out there that are a lot faster, but we're demonstrating for homeowners how to renovate their houses. So there's a lot of painting contractors that have different systems that are a little bit faster, but that equipment takes a while to set up and clean up. And you can only use it when you're painting a lot of stuff. This rig right here, your traditional roller, 15mm nap, I'm gonna call that 1/2 inch. With a tray liner, a regular tray, a 3-inch brush, and you can paint every room in your house, okay? The only difference is you have to wash your gear. Now, I'm using a really long extension pole today. And generally, it's not necessary to have a long pole to paint the ceiling. I mean, I have a nice little 2 to 4 foot pole, and that would work fine. But what this does, this pole allows me to paint my ceiling and keep my hands nice and low, okay? So when I'm painting a ceiling, I don't have my hands above my heart. And that's really key to not straining yourself. This is gonna be a long day painting a basement. And if I'm up here like this, my arms are gonna get fatigued, but it's gonna cause my heart to work way too hard. So I just take it easy, and I keep my hands nice and low, and I can paint my ceiling with ease, and I'm not straining with a small little stick. Okay? So, of course we have to load it up. In this situation, these windows in this area are facing north, so we're not gonna get direct sunlight blowing through here. So we're gonna paint a long wall first, just because when you paint a really long wall, it's easier to keep the paint wet on a short wall. So for my second coat, I wanna make my life easy and have the short distance, okay? If I have a little bit of drying and overlapping on the first coat, it's not gonna show through as bad as if it's on the second. So all I do is I extend my pole, get myself comfortable. There we go, right into the corner, and bring it back. Nice. Here we go. So basically my process is this. I roll the long wall, and then I'll come and cut, and then I'll give it about an hour and a half, quick sand with my 360 sander, and then I'll cut and then roll. Do it in the reverse order. When you do your first coat, you'll find that you don't have much of a cut to do after you've rolled. So it's nice to just get the rolling done and let the paint start drying. Because when I sand, I want the paint to be nice and dry before I put a sander up there. And I'm not sanding right into the crevices. So if I cut after I roll on the first coat, and then I wait about an hour, I can cut the ceiling, and then by the time I'm done cutting the ceiling, it's been almost an hour and a half since I actually painted the ceiling. Then I'm ready to sand it real quick, and then roll. So the goal here is to paint long, even strokes, okay? Because the longer you roll it out, there we go, the more you can keep your edges wet, all right? The edge of the paint at the front here, this is the line you want to keep wet all the time. And so you want to paint one half and then switch to the other half. Now because the paint doesn't have any acrylic in it, it actually helps to facilitate painting the whole room without getting any dry lines, okay? If you like a shinier surface, you have to be really careful and really quick. But I like this because it's not a very fast process. You get a lot of work done in a short amount of time with very little effort. And then at the end of the day, even if you make a little mistake, this paint's so good it's gonna hide it all for you anyway. One other thing I'm gonna point out is the direction of the cage. You'll see that the rod is here on the lead edge. That's because there's more pressure here than on the back side. And I want to have the pressure up at the front. All right, now when you're painting your ceiling finish coat, you're not using a lot of pressure, but still it helps to eliminate the lines if you have it facing in the right direction. So roll it out. There we go. and then finish off like that. Boom. Now you can imagine how much effort would be involved in doing this ceiling if you were holding on to that paint roller and standing on a ladder. Up and down, paint in every direction. This makes this entire job relatively quick and really painless. So here's the reason why I'm using single gallons of paint for my ceiling. And I'm doing an entire basement here, all right? So I could have bought a 5-gallon pail, but here's what happens. When you open the 5-gallon pail and you start pouring it out, by the time you finish all of the projects, there's so much air going into that pail that now the paint's starting to dry and get little crumbs and dirt in it. So what I like to use is 1 gallon at a time. I'll pour 3/4 of a gallon into my paint tray, use the rest as my cutting can. And now it's easy to run around and just touch this up. Make sure that everything is coated. Don't get lazy with this and only do it on the second coat. It will show and you'll see a dark line around your ceiling. So make sure you get your cutting done, and then it's a great time to go for coffee. And then come back, we'll cut again, and then roll the short side. Then this ceiling's done. One last little thing. If you have a trap door in your ceiling for the shutoff valve for your tap outside, make sure you paint it. This is a plastic in a lot of cases, and it looks great today, but in a couple of years after that UV light that bounces around outside and comes through the windows hits this, it'll end up turning yellow. So give it a good little paint job, hit all 4 sides, and then roll, and then set it on the ground to dry. Well, we're back from coffee break, which turned into lunch. You know, this happens when we get together. Listen, here's the rest of the system. We've got our first coat completed now. And like I said, if you don't take a whole lunch break, then you can move a lot faster, but do the cut first for the second. All right, so that's just as simple as getting your brush wet and then making it dry. After I'm done the cutting in, I'm gonna take my sander pole, give it a quick scuff, and then another coat. Okay, so here's my Radius 360 sander. Let's get rid of the old sheet that's covered in drywall dust. Before you sand your paint, you wanna have a nice clean sheet. This is a 220 for everybody who's asking what I'm using. Done, self-adhesive, okay? This is brilliant. And like I said, don't go right into the corners. Really what we're doing here is we're not trying to scuff it up to make the paint stick or anything like that. We're passing over the general surface to make sure if there's any little hairs or little chunks of dirt that they're gone. You can't see everything in every kind of light. So it's better to assume that something up here needs to be sanded off than to assume that everything's perfect. There we are, just a quick pass over the general area. Good practice. Oh, I just saw one little nugget that I had to get rid of. That's awesome. All right. Reminds me of the first time I ever painted a ceiling, Matt. My God. I was young and stupid and I didn't know the right way to do it. So I was using a short stick like this. I was painting. It was a big commercial space. And I must have been painting for 8 hours straight, like this, with a big stick. I got home. I think I must have been about 22. Just young and dumb. And I got home and I woke up the next morning and I couldn't move my head. I was just like all seized up. My body basically said, okay, you're done for the day. We need another day to recover from whatever stupidity you were involved in the night before. Crazy. All right. Woo! All right, let's go see. Bum, bum, bum. It's like CSI here. Look at every one of these little spots. That's a chunk that was on the ceiling that would have cast a shadow. Now they're not going to be a problem. Okay, so now we're going to go the opposite direction. Same process. Get the cage pointing the direction that you're heading. Don't roll right into the corner. Just gentle pressure. Now that the ceiling is all sealed up with the primer and the first coat, this paint is going to sit on the surface a lot nicer. and you'll find that the lead edge will stay wetter a lot longer. Do some back rolling. Now that I mention it, back rolling is this. You're rolling this part of the ceiling here, right? Stretch your paint out and then go backwards over the joint. Put the middle of the joint in the middle of your roller, right there. And then slowly come forward. There we go. Constantly leaving that pressure on the front of your roller so you don't get lines on the ceiling and behind. And we just got to do this about 25 more times and we're all finished. Well, that pretty much wraps up all the information I've got on how to paint a ceiling. Remember, try to keep your hands low. Take your time. Watch for marks. And if you have any questions about the process or the tools or the materials, ask them in the comment section below. Of course, you know I'm in that comment section every day answering questions. Happy to help. And if you want to know where to get all the stuff that we're using, we have a link on our description of the video to go to Amazon. And if you want to help support our channel by going to Amazon to do your shopping, that would be appreciated. Every little bit helps. But more importantly, Amazon is there to help you guys get the tools that you need without having to shop around for it. All right, and if you want to sit around and watch me paint the rest of the ceiling because you find it somehow relaxing and soothing, then go right ahead.